right, welcome back to another episode of Bitcash Breakthrough, your gateway to digital wealth. We provide education, stories, inspiration, and actionable advice from industry experts like Michael Bohnen, a trailblazer in the blockchain industry who spearheads the proof of stake division at his company, Treis Blockchain, that includes the EOS USA project. Michael has expertly sourced, built, and maintained a robust infrastructure composing over 50 physical servers, complete with redundant internet power and cooling systems. His expertise extends to providing consulting and custom development services for projects aiming to harness blockchain functionality. A skilled leader, Michael manages development teams that design and deliver bespoke blockchain integrated applications and services, pushing the boundaries of blockchain technology. Welcome, Michael. How you doing?
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. I'll start these interviews by asking, what got you into crypto? When did you hear first about Bitcoin or any other crypto?
Let's see. I've always been an IT nerd, so that's been my passion and career. And so we actually had and still have a managed IT firm that did lots of support and technical side of things. And ironically, it was once the ransomware and all the public visibility of Bitcoin started popping out and we were having to fix those. That's whenever it was, what is this Bitcoin? These nerds finally figured it out. So that's actually when a lot of us started getting more in tune with it and understanding what it is and where it could go. And then that's probably 14, 15, 16, somewhere around in there. I'm a hardware person, and so are some of my other partners that I work with. And we started getting into the mining side of things. So, it used to be able to run on your computers when they were idle. Then it was, hey, I got these graphic cards. And then it was, hey, let's build a warehouse full of graphics cards. And then that evolved into, let's build a warehouse full of ASICs. And so that was when things evolved from personal hobbies over to our official kind of mother company, Treis Blockchain, which is the official big boy project and does lots and lots of all things blockchain. So, of course, got our founding in the mining side of things with the hardware and the concept, and runs out here in Greenville. It's 10 megawatts of liquid cooled or immersion mining technology. And so that's one of the big things that we do. But where I came on and full time into that was to flesh out what we call the proof of stake division, which I also refer to as the fun division, because it's that utilization of the blockchain technology or the different aspects outside of what we call the proof of work division, which is like industrial scale, plant management, power agreements, multi-site. There's much more to the blockchain world as for what you can use it for, with Ethereum and EOS and smart contracts, and where the technology can take us as opposed to just being a solutions provider at the hardware level. So anyway, that's how I found my way into my full-time job being blockchain anything. And as you can imagine, just anything technical, it has its sprawls all over the place in this early phases of development and adoption. So
yeah, that's fantastic. And we could get into both sides of the business. We could go back to the mining. It seems as though a lot of infrastructure guys are just more tech savvy folks. Always get into the mining side. That's like the beginning. It is interesting you did mention that, hey, there's also this ransomware thing, and it's even the bad side of Bitcoin and crypto, at least create this awareness. So did you guys have to really figure out how to, solve these ransomware kind of malware? Is that
like I say, sadly, it was, and it still is, the black eye of crypto. That's where most people's first exposure to it was, what do you mean my computer doesn't work anymore? And what's this Bitcoin that they're asking for? The whole ransomware and that whole phenomenon and still played to this day was an interesting aspect of, it's the easiest thing to do. Just encrypt your files and then just take away the key. But what it did is definitely expose, and of course, even, I don't know, solidify. Look, if the hackers are willing to take their funds in Bitcoin, what is this? They didn't ask for it. Here's my bank account, transfer me some money, right? So it definitely, forced us to get into it. I'll be honest with you, back in the day, of course, God knows what it's worth now. The way ransomware kind of works is they make their money by getting the ransoms and giving you back your keys. So there were actually a couple of instances where we just tracked down some Bitcoin back in the day, paid the ransom, got the key, and got the files back. It was worth the $200 or whatever it was. I'm going to spend 5 days trying to crack encryption and figure out backups. And has anybody just tried sending them $200 in Bitcoin and seeing if he'll give you the key? Damn, it worked. It was an interesting experience, but that obviously was our first exposure mainstream. You see it, you hear about it, the 10,000 Bitcoin pizza and all of that. But like I said, we found ourselves in that front line of when coin really started becoming a, I don't know, currency, so to say, is I need value and this is how you're going to give it to me. Of course, they thought it was anonymous, but we all know that isn't true. But anyway, so yes,
Yeah.
it was interesting. And then, yes, I'm a hardware geek, always have been, building computers where I got my start and always just enjoyed it. So that concept of, wait, you want me to build a big ass powerful computer with multiple graphics cards and 1600-watt power supplies? Shoot, I'll do that for fun. So that's what really drags you into the whole, or the original mining side of it. Nowadays, it's industrial, man. It's just become next level. Yeah, you can run some graphics cards on some chains if you wanted to, but it takes millions of dollars worth of ASICs and warehouses of ASICs to compete and at Bitcoin at the biggest scale, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys are in that business, but maybe more on just be cool to know on the kind of personal hobby side. Ethereum, you had other GPU coins. Just do you have any stories around then where, about what was going on there with the GPU mining?
Yeah. I guess my favorite one, or the probably the most beneficial in the long term, was back in the day, as Wild West, there was all these different coins. Our main ones, the ones I was mining, I had racks of GPUs in my garage that I was running, plus managing the warehouse for the company. But Ethereum and Monero were two kind of the mainstream chains, 2017, 18, give or take about that time. But it was really the boon of all of these mining, and there are all sorts of coins, we'll call them. I have another affectionate term for them, but even altcoins that were really all obscure and probably not going to win. But you could mine them at certain times and make a lot of the tokens. And if you could figure out the algorithms and the patterns of how computing power was shifting around the space, you could figure out how, hey, if I mine this coin for these 6 hours, or if I look for this pattern, I know that the next time frame is going to be profitable to mine. And I actually rigged it up to where from my phone, I could hit a button and it would loop through all of my different machines, all the mining rigs. And it would shift the mining pools from Ethereum over to Monero or over to Sumo Coin or Carbonarwick or whatever all these crazy ones were. And anybody back in the day will remember the lovely playground of, what was that? Crypto, which was, it was a exchange that dealt with any coin, but it didn't do. So we're off in lot land. But I did not invest heavily into the altcoins that I was mining. I was flipping them into sell. All of those mining profits in high profitability times, right, quote unquote, I ended up dumping in 2017 into Bitcoin and sitting on it, which obviously worked out much more in my favor than sitting on those Sumo coins or Bitcoins, whatever. But they would laugh at me as I would be sitting there and I would see the patterns coming, right? I had the graphs up or whatever, but hold on, let me do this. I hit a button and you just see this script launch on my computer and it would go through and just the whole mining farm would shift over. And I enjoyed playing the numbers and being able to win off of that. But like I said, I went into Bitcoin in 2017 with them, and of course that worked out.
Yeah, that's very smart. I think to have that strategy, I think it did make sense to put your resources wherever you could get the most profitable amount of tokens. And at that point, it's rather than just keeping them, it's like
hope for the best, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
now I'm a hope for the best with Bitcoin. And yes, Bitcoin survived. Sumo Coin, I don't think Sumo Coin's still out there. I don't know, but that was one of them that I remember. But like I said, you would catch, and it was because the sites and the averaging, it would say, hey, this is a profitable coin to mine. As soon as the average went down, that's when it would start showing up on most people's systems to shift. I could see, I don't need to wait on the average. I need to see when that number starts. And so you look back a couple of hours and figure out, this is when you should do it, not when the rest of the world gets told to do it. When it shows up that it's profitable, that's when you should shift back because then everybody's peeling off of it, right? So it's a numbers game, squeezing blood from the turnip. Anyway, I digress, but that was some of my fun times. Man, I was in crazy coins, but ultimately went into Bitcoin. And what didn't get snatched in the Cryptopia hack, they got shut down and everybody lost a lot of funds over there, but I did keep some Bitcoin. So.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a great story. All right, so let's from that personal experience to now you're involved with a company that does Bitcoin mining, right? In industrial scale. It's so
Yeah, I'm one of the
maybe
partners.
yeah.
It's a lot of the same business partners that I've had, plus a few more, or whatever. But yeah, we basically do it at big scale, right? And even have an
Mhm.
arm that takes investments and does big mining operations. And that's obviously a lot of money in and money out. But then you have, what else does blockchain do? What about smart contracts? What about DeFi, GameFi? What are
Yeah.
other opportunities as a business to enter the space type of thing? So that's where I came over full time, left my senior engineering position at the IT firm, and came over here full time about the time EOS launched to learn the software, become a pseudo expert in it, figure out where our opportunities could be made, just have fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's switch over to the proof of stake side of things. So you come in, you're getting into and doing industrial mining, but okay, now your main focus is this new proof of stake
We call it
ecosystem.
proof of stake, and it's
Yeah.
basically anything that doesn't require the power of Iceland to run, which proof of
Mhm.
stake is that first iteration of run it on a regular server, put up coins or whatever, and ultimately do the validation. Naturally fell into that same slot and very quickly took over the majority of my time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, you're one of kind of the really well-known ones in the EOS ecosystem as for infrastructure. And so that was probably one of your first chains, I would say, that you probably started with, or were there any other chains?
There were lots that have come and gone, but yeah, when EOS, I mean, it was the first one coming from the ICO and the claiming process and mainnet launch and all of that. Obviously, we were there at launch, and of course, realized it's not nearly the same as just firing up a Geth node and letting it sync up and just run, right? I mean, there was technical sysadmin understanding requirements as well as hardware requirements. It wasn't designed, at the time we were talking about massive amounts of RAM, even back then, and realized that there might be a place for technical prowess to excel. And so that's where we jumped in. But yeah, like I say, started off with EOS, saw the mainnet launch. We were in the background more so than some of the other mainstream block producers that you saw that had a much bigger presence. But we were always there and breaking stuff and trying to figure things out. And when new software, layer two, and new features would come out, we would always kind of be there to try it out and break it and help advance it forward. So just slowly started establishing ourselves as somebody who understood it and did it. We didn't reach top 21 on for many years. We weren't in that original batch and became very fluent in it. And you saw the problems and tried to work towards fixing them. And then, of course, as other chains saw the benefit, what was EOSIO, now Antelope, that software and infrastructure, as they started to launch, we very quickly became involved with many of the other ecosystems to try to export our knowledge and expertise and figure out ways to keep the lights on. Yeah, like I say, really started kind of branching out. And we're in a slightly different scenario than most other people. And one of the reasons we dove into it heavily, because we have the Bitcoin mining facility here at our HQ, we've got redundant internet and decent staffing options and stuff like that. And we realized that it wasn't too much of a stretch to build out a data center environment, right? Because when the miners lose internet, they're not making any money. So that's the same concept as a data center is you never want to lose internet, right? Do it at all costs. And we're already spending the money on business class internet, even though miners don't use a lot of traffic. So what we did, or what I mostly did, and you mentioned, is really built out a mini data center here in our Bitcoin mining plant in Greenville, South Carolina, out here on the East Coast. You have redundant gigabit fiber connections from multiple carriers and got a big 60 kilowatt generator that can run the entire farm for weeks. I think I've got 8 tons of air conditioners, 3 or 4 ACs in there, and some backups and stuff like that. That really just built an on-premise environment that we were already having to build and maintain for the mining facility. And so that allows us to more capitalize our hardware. And I get to see my blinky lights and actually screw the screwdriver and things like that, which we don't end up paying hosting costs, which is great. Somebody else takes care of it, but you keep paying it. Every month that bill shows up on the doorstep. You're at the mercy of what they have and where they are. But we live in a little different world that we can buy the hardware and rack and stack it and not have to pay the exorbitant overhead of hosting. And that also allows us to be able to spin up 50 servers. That racks behind me is that all those are all the high end. We use Intel i9 processors because those are actually the best or one of the best for processing blockchain because they're really fast. So that's another conversation about the hardware specs. But we're in a different scenario and able to work on a lot of different chains because I don't have to rent and manage all these servers out in the cloud. We can much better utilize our funds and resources with our on-prem installation. And it's
Yeah,
always good for decentralization, right? It's not good to have 55% of your network rented at Amazon.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. No, it's great that you're able to build your own data center from just mining to and leveraging it for proof of a stake systems. So that's amazing. And you mentioned breaking things. I know you're known for kind of testing and breaking things. And any stories, share that because I think that's interesting. Because
I don't know. I can't. I don't know if anybody can quantify it. But when the devs come back and say you truly have some uncanny ability at just breaking everything, I'll give a spoiler. It's probably because I read the instructions about 80-90%. Enough to figure it out, but not enough to pay attention to that one thing I probably should have done. But it's also a lot of the ability and one, I've got a lot of hardware. Two, I run a lot of nodes and scenarios. We're a big provider. We take millions of requests an hour. It puts us in a little different scenario to test versus what, of course, the devs are doing in their environment. Even some of the unique situations. I know Kevin, which is one of the great devs of EOS over the years. We went round and round on EOS USA bugs and comas and stuff. And a lot of it had to do with there's not many people that have racks and racks of servers that are all plugged into the same physical switch that are talking to each other at 0 millisecond latency, instantaneous. There is no interwebs between any of my nodes. And what would happen is that my environment functioned a little differently because while it's only milliseconds, those milliseconds made a difference when it was instant versus 200 milliseconds later. And it would actually cause a different type of scenario because all of my servers are physically in the same room, whereas almost never do you get production equipment all on the same switch, you know what I mean, at instantaneous speed. So we have a little different environment that allows us to sometimes exploit different scenarios and just doing it on scale, right? There's about 50 physical servers. There's probably about 150 instances of Antelope, NodeOS, whatever you want to call it, all different versions and flavors. And then you add the layer twos and stuff on top of it. And yeah, that's right. It worked out of the box. But when you actually started using it for indexing, nah, brah, something's wrong. So it's a multitude of different things. Being intimately involved in the space on weekly calls with the devs and all the different chains and having the enough technical prowess to be able to push the boundaries or do the things for testing. But I also pride myself as I don't fix them because I'm not a developer, right? A lot of people will break it and then try to fix it and say, oh, I'll just work around it. No, I'll put my hands up and go like, look, this shouldn't do this, right? Yeah. Why don't you fix that so somebody else doesn't run into it? I don't even know how to fix it. I'm just telling you, it shouldn't do this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sometimes it's just too fast, maybe, because usually you have problems with just servers being from different countries and maybe the latency and all that. But you guys are
That's always
all
been
in
the battle. Yeah, it's real hard for whatever reason. Here, EOS USA and Hong Kong EOS alphabetically were always like stuck right in together, and Rio was in there too. And literally, we would try to exchange handoffs all the way around the world to every single continent there was, except for Europe, which is right in the middle. And it's really difficult, right? And so that was always kind of focus, and rightfully, milliseconds add up when you're in this type of a time frame. But yeah, like I say, it really is different when you start to get out to all these different types of environments. or different parameters like on this new spring testing, the new instant finality, we're working on the test net. And one of our settings happens to be different than what everybody ever tested with. And it broke the hell out of something and found a bug that needed to be fixed. Just being willing to try it out and knowing, hey, it's going to blow up, and having a server be able to blow up. You don't want your production. I use a lot of servers for production. Those aren't the ones that I try to break. I do break them on accident sometimes, but to have the dedication even to focusing on that side of it. Not everybody has that ability, or hate for life. I don't know how you describe it.
You seem to have fun breaking stuff, so
Remember, of course, the way DPOS, very early
Yeah.
on, the way DPOS
Yeah.
works is, it's all about getting your support and getting known and getting votes, right? And it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what you do. It more matters that the voters appreciate what you do, right? And so I learned early on I needed to establish a brand. Right. I mean, you needed to know who EOS USA was. And so, number one, obviously USA, and you've always seen my embracing on our stars and bars, and even my servers are lit up as the colors. But that was also I literally would come into every single room and say, hi, my name's Michael and I like to break shit. That became my persona, and I was good at it. And you need somebody like that, right? It's always great to have, I could do it better than you, or I develop my own product or whatever. I'm like, nah, man, I ain't got nothing of my own. I just want to run your shit and tell you how bad it is.
That's great. That's great. Hey, that's a way to build a brand. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So let's switch gears to like Antelope. What can you tell us about the technology? What are you learning? You mentioned instant finality. So what's in the trenches? What are you seeing?
Yeah, like I say, it's always been one of my passions of the technology. Very early on, they were ahead of the game, and with all the different chains, different people have developed all sorts of different standards and technologies. So it's really exciting to see what has built on top of it, like the atomic standard for anything. IBC now, actually, between the chains, you can do all sorts of cool things. But we've found and invested a lot of time into the Antelope space, EOS, and all of the chains. Dozen different public chains and a couple different private chains and test nets for all of those. There's a block getting signed on an Antelope chain, I think every 3 or 0.4 seconds. I did the math here. Is that we run a lot of Antelope, which helps in learning and knowing and providing feedback, as well as being able to provide guidance and expertise on next versions, or even current version, what changed from the last version, because that's always the hardest one. It's easy to see what's coming next. It's really hard to realize where'd this error come from? Oh, you're upgrading for the first time in a year, right? Yeah, that's whatever. We really found our sweet spot as an infrastructure provider and consulting the other BPs or other apps and projects, because Antelope, the technology is awesome and fast, but it's also very intense. I don't know what the word I want to use for it. It's not just spin up a node and let it rock. There's either configurations or understanding of the way the chain works, and half-second block times, and what the chain tries to do to make sure that all works, and different features and things like that. So we found a kind of a sweet spot in providing consulting or even services for a lot of the dApps that are building on top of Antelope. On any of the different chains, you can export the same talent, but helping the developers understand, here's a token contract. I don't know how many token contracts I've deployed, but to get started and that basic understanding, and then how they query table rows, and how you submitted a transaction, but it may not have gotten included, and why those types of things happen, or even spinning up their own nodes, or just providing private nodes, or being familiar with the layer 2 technologies that everybody wanted to smash on the history servers just to figure out what happened on the chain. You know that there's 3 or 4 other ways of doing that are way better than just smashing the shit out of my API. That's what you want to do. That's whatever. If we did it this way, neither one of us would hate life, really. And that's been exciting. It's been working with a lot of these projects, 2 guys in a garage type of thing, that have an idea, see the benefit of the technology, and have started developing on it. But as you can imagine, can very quickly exceed their knowledge or time or desire to want to figure a lot of that out. And so we've kind of helped find a niche to be able to squeeze in there and help out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. And how do you compare Antelope with maybe other chains, just technologically? What kind of resources are you having to focus more on with Antelope compared to maybe other chains that you've worked on?
I like to say I feel it is the feature set that the
Hmm.
Antelope chains offer, and I'll include the layer 2 standards that have come on top of it. I bundle it as a whole user experience. I definitely feel like it is superior to many other blockchains out there. After many years, there's some other chains that have some of the speed and even some of the user-friendly account names and just some of the different mechanics and stuff like that. But it's always been very more feature-rich technically packing all along. And that has led to, I think, in my opinion, faster development of the NFT platforms and standards and things like that. That they didn't have to wait on 10-minute blocks or 2-minute blocks. When you start off with half-second blocks, all of a sudden you can start building systems that took that into account off the bat. So if you're looking for features, I still think that the Antelope stack provides one of the strongest sets. Part of the problem, detriment, is the technical expertise and hardware requirements to be able to provide those types of features and functionality are much more than people think and are at some points, I'm not going to say unreasonable, but it's not what you think, right? You wouldn't think to run a bunch of blockchain nodes that I would have the gaming computers in a rack, but that's the hardware it likes and wants. So it is a little more technically demanding and hardware included in that than most would think, or that is ideal. We're actually working with the devs on making it more efficient and making it not require Mac Daddy servers, but more normal servers. But so does that make sense on the two sides of it? Feature side, I think it's very powerful and has advanced a lot. From the technical side, it's more difficult than I think most people think.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a set it and forget it type of thing.
Gotcha. And then what are you excited about in terms of what's coming up? I think the latest version, right? Leap 6 and
So yeah,
instant
the instant
finality.
finality is going to be a
Yeah.
big thing, and it's spring 1.0 is what most of y'all would know of as Leap 6.0, but taking a version hop. But anyway, so it's pretty cool. We're still working on activating it and all the different mechanics and the different bugs and stuff working through. But ultimately, that's going to be huge. It was great to have half-second block times, but even a 2-minute wait of finality or confirmation makes it many different mechanics difficult or borderline impossible to do. Society today, and especially app experience, waiting 2 seconds is borderline unacceptable. 2 minutes, no, which obviously it's not 10 minutes like Bitcoin or 2 minutes like Ethereum, but that 2-minute finality still added a lot of difficulty to using chain data effectively because you couldn't validate it absolutely without a decent delay. So I do think that it's huge for the Antelope stack to be able to progressively move forward to have second and a half, couple blocks or whatever it is. You can do things and rely on them in a much more user-friendly experience time window, so to say. There's also some cool features that are coming out with it, the enhancements of the software. It also has they're changing the mechanics of block production, proposing, and validation. So they're actually, this new finality and versioning, actually, instead of it all being one single role, mechanically in the software, they're now two separate roles. Now they will be, to start with, the same top 21. It'll still be the same people doing it, but the software is starting to have this mechanic of understanding the people like me that run the badass servers that are actually processing the transactions and need the faster hardware to make sure that you're billed at your CPU that your build is how much CPU my server takes to run your transaction. The faster it is, the less you get billed, is the theory, right? Validation doesn't require quite that same level of hardware speed. It still has requirements, but also it doesn't require the schedule. The mechanics of it can be different. So the whole point of it, without going into a whole bunch of nerdy details or whatever, there's lots of articles and info out there about it, but I'm excited just because we're an Antelope shop, so EOS is our first and our biggest, but that doesn't mean that there aren't many other projects that have found the benefit in Antelope, that it gives chains or organizations options in separating the block validation role from the block proposal. It's just actually processing the transactions.
Sounds good. And yeah, that's great to hear. It seems like a huge upgrade. It is a hot stuff in terms of name consensus, but did they tweak the name a little bit? Is it something? It's a version of hot stuff.
I understand, yes.
Yeah.
As I
Yeah.
mentioned, I'm not even minor dev, much less super dev.
Mm.
So I don't get into, I couldn't speak intelligently on a lot of the difference. I do know, yeah, it was an adaptation of the hot stuff, is what I heard. But obviously they had to change some things just to make it work. And even once they implemented that, it got delayed a year now to put it, take it back in. There was this unknown kind of quirk or flaw or whatever that wasn't a bug, but it was something that kind of came up after the fact that really needed to be addressed. And so they took it back and kept working on it. 5.0 went out, and then 6.0 Leap Spring 1.0 has this modified version of hot stuff. But beyond that, couldn't tell you much more other than the key management. And as I mentioned, some of the architecture and the way the services work just from being a provider and testing it.
All right. Sounds good. And do you have a ETA on when you expect a spring 1.0?
Yeah, so the repo is actually public, although I will say there's some licensing changes and discussion that's going all along with it. That's a whole different conversation and call. But the code's actually out there, and I don't know of any of the actual public test nets, nor would I suggest at this stage they do it, that are running it yet, although there are a couple of us EOS tech heavy node operators that have joined in to, we are starting to run a decentralized version of a test net, right? And then slowly it'll start to work its way, I'd say slowly, relatively quickly, it'll probably work its way to Jungle and then Kylan and then EOS pretty rapidly in the same progression that we always do our upgrades, right? Jungle's where we always, the BPs and the infrastructure providers get to tweak all the knobs to the nth degree and double produce and try to break it as best we can. And then Kylan tends to be much more mimicking of EOS, and for the developers to, here's what's about to change, y'all get ready. And then once we vet everything out, roll it out to production in EOS. And I think they published some tentative timelines of the summer type of, I've heard July dates. I would go ahead and probably say August, just because nothing ever goes as planned, right? But like I say, it's definitely being worked on, progressing rapidly. When bugs get identified, they classify them. Fix it now, fix it later. And the fix it nows are getting rolled out. And now we're on the third beta version right now that's kind of picked. There will be a third version. There's a third version and will probably be a fourth version, but getting really close to probably taking it to the next step, but within a couple of months, I'll say.
Sounds good. Yeah, coming up soon. All right. Thanks for all the insights. And so I guess the last topic we could talk about, you got your hat, Garage ID. That's a separate project, totally separate project. Maybe you can share a little bit about like the story behind that. Like
it is, but combined, right? That's what I mentioned. My department's kind of everything else, the fun department, right? So in addition to working with a lot of software projects and developers and learning and seeing and coming up with ideas of our own, we do have some in-house development projects actually all over the place. I've got a data engineer that's building AI engines for reading blockchain data and reporting and stuff like that. And one of our other big projects is building software development solutions provider. And what we say is we build Web 2 with Web 3 features sprinkled in. One of the solutions that we've been working on for years, actually, been working on it for a couple of years. It's called Garage ID, website garageid.com. And the idea is that many of us are car enthusiasts. Some of us are even licensed racers that race the circuits, but realizing the car ecosystem, the enthusiast world is absolutely massive and amazingly, even in 2024 or 22 at the time, amazingly disjointed and dysfunctional. And they use Facebook for posts, they use Eventbrite for tickets, their text messaging and Venmoing for car club dues and memberships in Google Sheets. And there's a lot of technology that's available, but the auto industry really never, latched on. They've just adapted the disparate tools that were out there. And so in our thinking cap, we're trying to solve real world problems, but also think of ways to use emerging blockchain technologies. And of course, one of the best, mechanisms is point mechanisms, token reward mechanism. Your credit card's been doing that for decades, and you use your credit card because you get reward points, right? So integrating that kind of mechanism of points and tokens that are related to interaction and rewarding participation in the app and content creation. And what we realized when you bring everybody under one tent, the event management software that's built for car shows and car rallies, and the accounts that are registering, having their car information and their profiles and all of that, as well as the club management and then even the retail management. So we've built this application and opened up to publicregistrations.com. And like I say, you can sign up. You can for free, sign up for free. You can load your car, show all your profile information, make posts, social media type of content about it. And you actually get rewarded for it. You get rewarded points for logging in every day, for posting comments, for reactions to other people's posts, things along that line. And then ultimately we provide, it's a free platform for managing car events for either organizations that do events or car clubs that run their own events, or even just you and your buddies want to get together and go for a cruise in the mountains this weekend. A platform to be able to manage it effectively, either free and or we process credit card payments, Stripe, things like that, or be able to just get the information out for your event in a gallery. People can see events around me, clubs around me, things like that. So really just trying to unite the entire car enthusiast ecosystem under one app and integrate Web3 technologies, although we sprinkle it in. If you go and look, you'll notice that all the vouchers, discount vouchers, and like free t-shirts and stuff like that, they're actually NFTs, right? That's an asset. And you'll notice the look and feel of the way we interact with NFTs. And the idea is it's your asset. You can do what you want to with it. You can either redeem it, burn it, and get your swag, or if you wanted to, there'll be a market that you could sell it to somebody else who maybe wants a free sticker or t-shirt, or we're working with vendors. Actually, we just launched and we gave away 2 tickets to the Indianapolis 500 from one of our sponsors. Our level up racing school sponsors had some Indy tickets. So like I say, we're working on building a platform to not only bring the entire ecosystem together, but reward everybody, right? Reward the participants, reward the sponsors, reward the club. Everybody gets a benefit out of it. So
that makes sense. Yeah, and it seems it's you definitely have, I guess, personal interest in this industry, but it just seems like a huge industry that you can solve a problem for. NFTs as well, that's a core technology. It seems points, any kind of vouchers, tickets, that's a huge use case for NFTs. So it seems as though that's like one of the core pieces, at least technologically, underlying the platform. Is that correct? Or
that's a lot of the main economic aspects. But even think of it like this, is that once you have all your car information in there and you list out what your car is today, in a year, you may put new rims on it, you may change the paint, you may put a different spoiler or whatever on it. And so what I realized is that even having a car profile, that car profile is what it is today, but you really don't get a good snapshot in time of what your car was last year, almost like collectible snapshots of your car. And so that's where the idea came in is, well, what if you could simply click a button and create an NFT of your car, digital asset, which records all of the information about your car that you put in there at that time. And as you may see or are aware, you can actually create multiple number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and number 4, the same card. So you can keep a card, you can give one out to your buddies. We're even going to start incentivizing people to collect the cars and be able to, if you have so many, be able to get some extra points. Even the idea of, you can take that car information and build game mechanics and stuff around it. Obviously, that's a long way away, but the utilization of what we call digital assets in relation to your cars, that you can earn these points for free. You can redeem these points to be able to create your own NFT of your car, of all the information, all your sponsors. That's another thing. We allow people to put their car sponsors and stuff on their profiles and their NFTs. If you go and get free stereo equipment because your buddy Roger is giving it to you to put a sticker on there, I bet you can get a bigger subwoofer if he's got a website that's got it on there too. And even on your NFTs, it's immortalized into this was the car snapshot, if you will, at that time. And throughout the life cycle of a car, you can actually, I have one buddy that he has one that's his car when he bought it and one that's his car when he totaled it.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of
Actually,
it
the
opens.
deer totaled it. It was a pretty gruesome. It's an impressive picture, but yeah, you had a deer, and its poor FRS is absolutely. It's a convertible now. Let's put it that way. Anyway, that's another interesting use. At least I think so. Again, I'm not trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, right? NFTs and blockchain is not the solution for everything, but it's a cool technology, and that's the ethos of my division is finding these different and building them and consulting on them of people using the technology. And this is the way it works. Really, maybe you could do this and what we call a blockifying solution, right? Integrating Web3.
Okay, blockifying. Okay, I haven't heard that, but
it's not, that's a term we make up internally, but what do you call it? But it's, you take a solution and say, where would blockchain potentially fit into this as opposed to building it with blockchain as the basis, right? And development so much cheaper, design so much easier, features are so much more powerful. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It opens up a lot more possibilities for sure. Just even describing the variety of potential use cases for your car, all aspects of your car. That's great. One thing also that was interesting, we're a launch pad, but you did a Kickstarter campaign. So I was curious about that. So how was it? What was your experience? I assume the deliverable maybe was an NFT that the people are buying into, or what was the
So yeah, we did. Our packages are all over the place. There are some that were just beta access and a collectible NFT. There were some that had bonus in assets that when you earn points, you can get extra bonus. There was a lot of swag that was in it. People love physical goods and the hats. This was one of the demos that we got whenever we were trying to see what we were going to do. So it's like the second hat ever, or whatever. But so, like I said, and even to the point of like tire vouchers, our top end package, and again, it was not a small package, but you either got the option to go race a race car with our racing partner or do the Porsche experience down in Atlanta, which is, we get one of our owners is out of Atlanta. So anyway, but like I say, it was a wide range, all the way from like $20 packages to like $5,000 packages with some crazy impressive swag offerings. It's a unique experience. It's a fundraising experience, but it's not real fundraising or not normal fundraising, because my guys are actually much more in tune with, I don't know, call it true, I don't want to call it VC fundraising. The way that mechanic works, crowdfunding and Kickstarter is obviously different. You got some rules you got to play with. I will say, for being as popular and big as they are, I was still disappointed in some of the clunkiness of their interface and managing the pages and what they give you the option to do. But they got to find a balance. But it was cool. You got to have a good idea. Because you think it's great doesn't mean the world thinks it's great. And to be honest, there's probably a lot more great ideas that the world still doesn't think is great, because it's hard to present and it's your elevator pitch and that side. There's definitely plenty of, I don't know, spam bot. Hey, I can help you reach your goal. I got way more emails about potential partnerships that would cost me money, as opposed to anybody asking any questions or anything fruitful to the campaign itself. Although there were a few bots that donated $1. Hey, thanks for they just go in, they just subscribe $1 to everything in hopes that's their strategy or whatever. But like I say, it still requires a lot of hustling, right? It doesn't sell itself. You definitely got to drive your people to it in a fundraising effort. I don't think there's a lot of people that are browsing rando projects to just give money away to on Kickstarter. There are, but there's a lot of other stuff out there too. There's some funny ones. And go ahead.
It seems like Kickstarter has at least a platform of existing users as the selling point, and says, hey, but ultimately you probably have to draw people from the outside into Kickstarter just as much as you could rely on their existing customer base, right?
If you hit their market that they have. Sci-fi games, and that's really good manufacturing, right? I don't know if you remember, but the little cooler that had the stereo built into it, right? That was the stereotypical, because like, damn, take my money. I think it actually ended up blowing up. I don't think they delivered or something. I think there was some story along to go with it as it continued, but everybody remembers that, right? And everybody, that's the greatest idea ever. Of course, they should raise, and did, right? Raise massive amounts of money because everybody liked their idea. But those types of campaigns are, in my opinion, more successful. And a lot of times you're pre-ordering the good, so you're getting the product for it. Oh yeah, I spent $3.99, but I'm getting something that's going to retail for $6.49 when it comes out, and I'm helping it inspire and produce whatever it is. But, and like I say, game lore, creative content, there's, I think, a good following, and a lot of people tend to collect or support, or Dungeons and Dragons type of those types, I think, have some pretty good following and whatever. But yes, we didn't find a lot of existing support, but we also were doing it differently than I think most do. Most people ask for $5, $10, $20, rightfully so, because that's, you know, more the scale. You know, I mean, we were asking for 5,000. Hey, we'll put you in a race car, but that's maybe not the most ideal for most of your Kickstarter. They'll drop 5 and skip a Starbucks coffee this day. They're not going to drop 5,000 and miss.
Gotcha.
And then the last piece was the collection. It was interesting. When the campaign ends, you have a week to process payments and collect, and then of course, you know, deliver on the end. Let me tell you, if your credit cards fail or you have any issues with those, because Kickstarter doesn't charge your card until the completion of the campaign. So with a 60-day campaign, we had people that were putting in information in October, and it was November. And then ultimately in January, it was trying to process the payment. Some things had changed. Oh, that's great that you had a $5,000 limit on it in November, whenever you thought you did it. But at the current time, it just out of the blue went to go charge it for $5,000. The credit card said, oh no, he's only got 4,900. Bam, rejects it. Then you got to go chase him back down, and you have a week to go and get them to reprocess it again. But it was also, and again, I think some of that came from the way we did raising on it. Lessons learned. We did reach our goal. Obviously, we were able to do it, but there were a lot of hassles, and there was something, they wouldn't accept our submission until we added like a liability section. And the liability section literally says there is no liability. Oh, okay, that's fine. It was, you know, the mechanics and frame rate, the field was blank type of thing. And it's okay, you don't really want the information, you just want it to be filled out. Okay. But so there are some of the nuances related to that. But
yeah, that's interesting. I just think of it, at least from the credit card experience, some of the advantages of maybe doing it Web3 is just the processing. It's more like you get cash up front, not like you have to wait for someone to like use their credit card a second time, where it's like,
and escrow would definitely have solved that, which one of those major functions early on that smart contracts figured out is, wait, you need somebody to hold it in the middle. People's job is just simply to take money and whatever. A piece of code that says, okay, I'll take yours, and I know it's going to go there, but I'm not going to let it go until X is met. Novel concept. And that's what I say, those kind of even in a market or something like that. So if we're talking about our platforms and a market, you could, instead of having to like auction or something like that, okay, I'm going to do it, but not take, because you can't process cards and then reject their process. The credit card company won't let you do this. They don't like for you to charge or charge back, as a charge back. They get mad about that. So you got to say, okay, it was valid at the time, but I can't process it until the end. Whereas, okay, you take the points, you put them in escrow, and you say, I know I got it, and you can't spend it until it's ready to be done. So just as a loose example for it, but absolutely.
That's fantastic. Yeah, escrow for sure. That's just, I think, a really fundamental use case. Just real quick on, you said, hey, your teams used to be just, what's your thoughts on fundraising for more retail, a little bit more retail, because it's like Kickstarter. We're also a little bit more on the smaller check size retail side. So is there any thoughts on that? But maybe it's a little bit higher than $5, just maybe 100, 150 type range.
It's hard because I'd say the last year, maybe even 2, a lot of the VC or funding or even tech options, anything on the crypto side was in the middle of winter. They're just trying to keep the daggum lights on, and many of them didn't. And then on the business side, a lot of people during like I don't want to call it the recession, the COVID lockdown and that whole ripple effect took that opportunity to, if you had money, invest it and shoot some big loads out there. And then it real quickly was, well, let's see what's going to happen, whatever. And so a lot of it, just general funding has gotten tighter, right? It's that I already invested in your option in 2021. Now, oh, you got another idea? That's great. My funds are still tied up in, it's almost like a big push. Obviously, whenever the market tumbles is when big money makes money. It almost could tell that people that were interested before are still interested. They just don't have the capital because it's already invested in the things and they're waiting to extract it back out. So I don't know. I can tell you it's hard to raise money. It's hard to raise money from all the different aspects. And then I hear about the most whatever idea I could ever think of that raises $10 million from a VC firm. So I don't know. Just the other day, I was like,
do you have an example? We'll see. We'll evaluate to see if something to it.
Money management. That's what ultimately it was a conversation, and it was just about raising money to go and make more money. Which again, don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm raising money to hopefully make you more money. If your only goal is to raise money and make money, that sounds like a great business plan to me. But like I said, but they've raised $1 million or something, and it's because somebody says, "Hey, I have money here. Go make more money with it." That's what I'm like. Wait, so let me get this straight. You got legit projects that can't even get decent funding of a good idea because how am I going to get my money back out of this is the big question. It doesn't matter even if it's going to change the world or you know what, you might have that 1 in a million home run. Always Mr. Wonderful on the Shark Tank. Where's my money? How do I get my money back? That's what it boils down to. But yet you got these no brain concepts of if you give me $5 million, I have this mechanism that I think I can return 60% off of. You in? Do you need $10 million? Can I double it? So that's why I say there's still stupid money that's flying around up there, but it's very tough, to anything tech, anything. Software's a good platform, but a hard platform. Software, typically you build it, you invest it, you build it up front. And I mean, you keep it going along, but your investment is up front versus like manufacturing. You're constantly spending and building it. So there's different investment strategies and different mentalities, different groups of investors that just have. Some of them are manufacturing people. Some of them are they get software, and that's more the investment strategy they're looking for. They know they're going to get ripped $250,000 to develop a software package, but then maybe $20,000 a month to maintain it, right? 1 or 2 web devs, right? Versus a manufacturing facility, you don't spend a lot up front. You do the prototypes and whatever. But once you get mainstream production, you build a manufacturing facility, you employ hundreds of people, just apples and oranges. That was one thing I learned was the different categories of investment.
Yeah, that's
your target audience, knowing your audience. I've had a lot of people that are manufacturers that just don't get software dev, right? Because that's not how they look at investment.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and then it does make sense for 2021, 22, we had a boom, a lot of injection of money, and now it's just you can't sustain that, so it's a lot tougher these days.
Half of it's legitimate, half of it's probably just the nice way of letting me down of nah, I'm good, man. But that seemed to be more than I guess I was expecting. Is I like it. I just don't have the money. I just dropped $5 million 2 years ago into this. See why? Or they bought a struggling business, right? They collapsed during the recession lockdown, and they went in and scooped them up or bought some IP or whatever, right? The movers were moving.
Interesting. All right. Any final words? We can wrap this up with anything you want to share? Anything? How do people get a hold of you if they need any infrastructure help? Consulting.
Always, I'm heavily on at EOS USA is our channel, or EOS USA _Michael on Telegram. I did at least try to get our website updated. If you go to eosusa.io, there's a contact us form. Every now and then people find their way in through that. But like I say, typically I'm on Telegram, but I'm always around. I don't know.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll have you back too. So I really appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks a lot. Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. And
absolutely. Look forward to the next time.
All right. Sounds good, Michael. Really appreciate it. Thank you.